Dun, 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 dun. We'll play like dangerous music.
I know. Welcome
Carrie,
to the
why did
Backpack
you?
Show.
Why was you welcome? Why did you pick this documentary? This is
Because you
a tough one.
forwarded me the pitch you received from someone at their office and said, let's book
It
them.
sounded cool. Let's do this. Let's get them. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, there's
I
some
thought-
that I picked, there's some that you pick, but this ended up being one that I think I would have picked if I had seen it.
This is everybody's story though, right? Like this is a situation where everybody went through COVID. A lot of small businesses got smashed in the face
But very
Nah.
few openly talked about it the way
and
that
shot a
Spiracle has.
documentary.
Mhm.
So Jarod, Latch, and Tim Baier here. We're going to talk about this documentary about that which went on for small businesses during COVID in a very up close, very personal
How they came
way.
through it and succeeded and are growing again.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gargone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
Ooh, that was fast. Look at you go. So when people are backstage on the Backpack Show, we can see them, but we cannot hear them. So during that, Chris was running around to put his box light on.
So you can see me go whoosh and leave
Looks
the
good.
screen.
Yeah.
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 So.
I've very rarely seen an executive move that fast. So there you go.
Executives are very
parents.
slow. My biological father and his wife.
Will you shut
My
up?
mom.
It's your mom.
It is my mom. That's what
Chloe
they say.
Forbes Kindlin from Scotland.
And who we had somebody else who's new here. Brant's
Brant.
not new. Brant was here before. What am I thinking?
Chloe says my bunches are adorable. It keeps the headphones from getting tangled up in my hair.
And I'm wearing them too. Okay,
Yeah.
let's bring on Jarod and Tim.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to turn you around though. Ready?
Oh, you're so fussy. Nobody
Right,
knows
look at
what
that.
order they were in.
Switching places. That was good.
Yeah, they're real
gotta do
fussy.
this.
He needs like everybody on their side of the bed. He's particular.
So we got to talk about saving Spiracle. This is not the documentary you sit down to watch when you're feeling. I mean, it's cheerier than all the murder fest that goes on in all the documentaries these days. But that's about all we can say about it. What made you decide to put this together? And I guess also, why put this tone out there? I guess what does
Well,
this
was
thing
that
do
the plan
emotionally?
though? Were you thinking
Well-
about doing the documentary about the business like before everything went wrong and then you just kept with it?
Yeah, I mean, so the plan was to do this really happy documentary about 10 years in business and talking to other business owners about getting through what 10 years looks like, all that kind of stuff. And literally just as we were getting ready to start this thing, the sky falls and the pandemic comes in. And there was a moment where we were like, okay, do we actually keep doing this and shoot this thing? Or do we scrap it and just, batten down the hatches and see how we get through it? And, if you remember back to the beginning, the thought was, well, we got 2 weeks that we got to do this to stop the spread, right?
Mhm.
And so we were like, all right, let's document this and we'll get through the other side of this and we'll figure it out and we'll go from there. And it just didn't stop. And it kept going down and down and down. And I credit Dave Kernodle, who's our chief creative officer here. He really was the director of this film. He really is the one that drove the show, and he's actually in the film too. So you get to see him throughout it. But really, that was how we were able to get the tone, because he really kept the storyline going and kept doing multiple interviews throughout the entire experience with the team.
I just wonder how many other businesses would have been like, let's wait. Let's wait until this is all over and things are good again. I mean, a lot of people don't even want to think about it happening like while it's happening, much less revisit it when it's over. So what kept you going, like to be that vulnerable and authentic?
Well, I think I'll jump in on that. It was sort of a natural extension of who we are. When we started Spiracle Media overall, it was all about our relationships. We came from a media background where those relationships were really important to us. And when we started the business back in 2011, we wanted to create an environment that was special and that was open and transparent, because we were trying to better our lives. And eventually we wanted to better the lives of those that came to work with us. So I think this was rather easy for us to open up. I think on the outside, it looks like this must have been a challenge to sit there and cry, as I did through most of it, because David knew exactly how to get me to go down that
You're
path.
a sensitive guy.
Yeah. And it was just natural for us. We wanted to share the story. If we were going to do it, we expect the same out of our partners and clients to get a really good story. So we wanted the same ingredients to go into this thing and come across. And I think that's why we were able to get to that point and present it the way we did.
Yes, but your spouses and like your family stuff that was going on at the same time, it's all in the mix. And I don't think a lot of clients like go for that. When you're talking about like, oh, 10 years in business, people talk about the business. This was really like a cross section of what was happening in your life at the time.
Yeah,
well, I think for me, go Tim. I was going to say it's so tied together.
Yeah, I was going to say it's tied together. Also, that's the feedback we received is that, the real reason that the film actually has some resonation with people is that they are in it, and that you do see the other side of business, not just the front of the house, you're seeing the back of the house. And that's where that was another decision by Dave that he really thought it was important to have their voice involved in this. And we were going through a lot of crap on the family side. And so it did. As you watch the film, there's a moment where you feel like, okay, we're getting into a high point, and then it's like, oh, we're going back down the roller coaster again. And it keeps you pulled in and keeps you tied in. And that was the hardest thing was, when I watched it, the first time I saw it, it was done. I didn't get to see any cuts of it going along the way. We did a showing at my house with our wives and the three of us. And it was like emotional cutting, like going back through it, and getting back into that zone where we were, because we were watching it almost a year later. But you're right. I think adding the wife's perspective into it really definitely changes the mood and also the vulnerability that's put there.
So the question I'm getting at when I asked it the first time around was the way documentaries work is that you can make them say whatever you want to make them say. You take all that footage and you narrate. You decide what you're going to do. And like you said, David put it together the way he did. And obviously it was different than what you intended when you started. Tim, you mentioned you didn't see it until it was produced. I mean, just how different was the like, is there a Snyder cut? Like, are we going to expect a 4-hour black and white version of this at some point?
If anybody was going to do it, Dave would do that. But no, I mean, being interviewed and going through everything, I knew the storyline. I just didn't know how it was all going to come together. And so that was the part that really, and similar to what Jarod said, previously before we got on, was that, there were things that I forgot about that I had suppressed, just because I didn't want to remember them. And to see going back through it, it was like just emotionally jarring for sure.
So what kind of conversations is the documentary stirring now with new clients, prospective clients, and clients that came back maybe when they were ready to get to work again?
That's a great question. And we continue to get that feedback as it comes in. And I think that there's a respect that has come out of the vulnerability that we have shown. And I think obviously, well, when they get to watch this, they feel like they know us completely. There's nothing that we really left out of this thing. So I think there's now a trust that maybe we don't have to work so hard to build because we have this piece that they see ahead of time. And they respect that. I think it was hard for me, just like Tim, when we watched it for the first time, was that I'd suppressed things as well. As a business owner, you have to just keep moving. I mean, you either quit or you keep moving. And we had made the decision as a leadership team to keep going. But when you go back and watch it, it's difficult to relive, especially on the front end. I think we've come to a place now where at least, I'm comfortable with it. It's not like I watch it very often. We'll have occasional events where we can talk to other business owners. And in that forum, in that environment, there's been a really healthy discussion. And I believe it's helping other business owners in the same way that we naturally suppressed it. They're able to come forth now and say, you know what, I swept that under the rug and I really need to get to it now, even 2 years later. And if that's part of the difference that it makes, it was never intended to be that way. But now I think in terms of something that can make a difference, it's really neat to see that. But with the clients and the partner side, there is a certain rapport. It's like doing a long pre-interview and then showing up at somebody's door. They may hug you right away instead of just showing up at the doorstep. And for us, I think we're getting that same sort of reaction, which is really neat.
Do you like it, or are you like, whoa?
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you a funny aside. We were recently, Jarod and I were interviewing a new employee who was going to come on, and got sort of toward the end of the interview, and she was like, I saw Saving Spiracle, and I just want to know, are you guys okay? And I
You're
was just
right.
like,
Before I
was like,
sign on.
oh man, like this is like, this is really gonna happen now. They're gonna all see this before they even come down this road. So
Well,
it
you
My-
was
should
pretty-
also see that you took back the producer who left because she was worried about that.
Yes.
So
This is true.
when you didn't die, she came back. And I feel like they should take some kind of like good sign from the fact that you were gracious enough to
And along the
So-
same lines as what Tim just said, my mom even reached out after seeing it for the first time, and she said, "Are you and JC okay?" My wife. And I said, "Yes, we're fine." She's like, "I never knew any of that was happening." And I said, "Well, that's not really something that we were going to broadcast at the time of not just the very deeply personal stuff, but the challenges of working at home and that dynamic and the adjustment that had to take place." And it was a struggle there on the home front for a little while. Nothing that was so severe that we weren't going to get through it, but that prodded her to ask the question out of nowhere one day, "Are you guys okay?" Because watching Saving Spiracle, it just made me wonder if is everything all right. And so that was interesting coming from my own mother after watching the film.
Hey, the pandemic, I mean, home life was not easy in general, but even before that, being married to an entrepreneur isn't exactly a picnic.
No,
So,
not at all.
I'm sure
I mean,
there was a
and
lot going on beforehand, is what I mean.
it's so true because I mean, my wife talks about it. I bring it home with me, and it just always is one of those things that you're always on. You're always thinking about it. I have a notepad next to my bed when I wake up in the middle of the night to jot down things that are running through my head so I can go back to sleep. It's just one of those pieces of the puzzle that you're always a part of. I will say real quick, Carrie, you were talking about Morgan, the producer that came back that she quit during the pandemic and she was a little scared. We didn't tell the team that she was coming back, and we screened the film for them. And at the end, with that credit comes up and says that she back, they all found out for the first time. And so there was like this loud cheer and excitement. So it was a pretty cool moment to be able to share with them too.
Oh, that's really fun. That was
Yeah,
dirty
that's
pool,
nice.
but fun.
You tugged with their emotions. You know what? We have to do a couple quick ad reads. Let me do that real quick. If you want an audio version of this show, you can get it at castos.com. Well, actually, you can get the show anywhere that you can get a podcast. If you want to make a podcast, you go to castos.com and set your own up. It's pretty
They
easy.
host your audio and send it all the places.
All the places. Hey, want a .online domain?
Hey.
Ours works. Go to cbrogan.me/online.
Shut
You
up.
get it works. It works. It's fixed.
Okay.
You can get for one whole US dollar. You just use the code Chris.
In all capital letters for reasons I will never understand. But
Mm-hmm. Hey, want a video show? You can have one. Go to cbrogan.me/StreamYard. You can set up your own video show. This easy. What are you whispering in my ear?
I said I do want my own video show. Here we are doing it. Obviously, I
Oh,
want
it's your show.
it.
Hey, do you want to stick it to the man? I love when I read the hey ones. Do you want to Presearch is a really cool search engine that these guys made because Google effed with them. And they said, well, we could do this. So it's actually a really cool thing, though. If you go to presearch.com, it works on cryptocurrency of its own kind. And it's not so much whether or not that coin's going to make you
You
rich. It
don't
will
pay
not.
to use it. They give
You
you
earn
crypto
to use it.
rewards for using it. Yeah.
But once you earn some of the coin, you can stake things. So you could stake, if you want to be the Jarod of all Jarods, you could stake it. So when someone searches Jarod's name, it doesn't go to the film right away. It goes to the page of I'm fine, really, or whatever. So presearch.com. Give it a go.
Hello.
There
Did
we
you
go.
see?
Welcome back.
Joanne here from Oregon.
Hi, Joanne.
Elizabeth
Good to see you.
popped in. Janice.
Now, listen, we all went through our changes during the pandemic. Only we didn't make documentaries.
Oh my God. It would have been like the least inspirational documentary. Be like, look, I'm getting all fat and lazy. This is great.
Right.
I've
Hey,
eaten more
wow,
cookie dough in the last year and a half.
Free agoraphobia. How'd I get this?
Wow.
In what ways does in what ways being observed, like how does that change how you act and operate in the real world? How did having a lens on you make you have to act differently? And was it harder?
I don't think it changed me much. And here's the reason why. I spent about 10 years in television on camera as a sports anchor, and I did radio before that. So I think I was in that environment before. It was different here going back in front of the camera, certainly for something that was so deeply personal and something we had worked so hard to build. So in that way, it was a little bit challenging on the front end, but at this point now, I don't look at it any different. You know, it's exciting, I think, to build off of the film now and have subsequent conversations about where we are and where we hope to go. And yes, that's a massive part of our story. But now I think it's becoming just a part of the story that we want to move from, that we will continue to study and look and see how we grew and what other learnings we can get out of it. But I think it was that time in media where I was used to being observed. So for me, it was no different.
Well, depending what teams you cover, there could be crying involved.
Oh, there was crying along the way,
yeah.
for sure.
Oh, you
First
mean
couple
in
years
his
with the
sports
Panthers
career.
were not good. They were not good.
Janice said watching me watch Netflix would have been riveting during the pandemic.
You know, watching all the YouTubers do the react videos, you know, that could have been a thing. I had a question about you. So this thing won awards. Like, it was submitted to film shows and won some awards. It has the little laurel-y things and everything. So that's kind of crazy. Like, how did that feel winning those awards? Like, given that, you know, you as a media company want to make awards in other areas, but not necessarily the laurel set. What did that feel like?
Yeah, you know, it was different. It was totally different than anything we've done before. So as we've built Spiracle Media, that's really, it's a media company built to do video storytelling for businesses, right? We decided that we were going to go down the road and build a new branch of our company called Spiracle Films, and would work on documentaries and long form storytelling and more spec storytelling. And so that's really what the beginning of Saving Spiracle was. That was sort of the launch of Spiracle Films. And so this was our first rodeo, and it's a little weird when it's a story about you. And so you show up to these film festivals and these people walk up to you and they're like, "Hi, Tim, how's it going?" And I don't know who the heck they are, but they've obviously watched the film. And so it's like a weird feeling because it's not like tons of people are seeing the film. So when somebody recognizes you from it at the film festival, it was a little odd, but it was a fun experience. We went to our first film festival was one in Statesville, North Carolina. It's a small film festival up there, and they do a really good job, and they get about, 40 or 50 films that they run through on a weekend. And we went up there just to go get the experience of being in a film festival for the first time, that whole thing. And we won Best Documentary. And that totally blew us away. But then we were like, okay, it's a small film festival. It's not a big deal. And then 2 weeks later, we were in Raleigh, and we won the Raleigh Film Festival. And so it was weird, like this momentum that's going on. And so there's still a few more film festivals out there. We're waiting to hear if we get in. Some of it feels like a vanity project a little bit, and so you don't get too excited about it, but it is cool to see some traction happening over time.
Are you going to do a sequel?
It's a good question. We haven't even talked about that.
No, but I want to touch too on Tim real quick. And you mentioned being observed, Carrie, that the most interesting part was sitting with a live audience at those film festivals. That was a little bit different. Like you're picking the seat in the back and you're looking at live reactions. That was the part for me that was completely different because we had never gone down that path. So it's sometimes unnerving. You're sweating a little bit more. You're just watching because they're observing you and with their reactions or commenting at their body language. So that was pretty fascinating part of it. But as far as the sequel, that is an interesting question. I really don't know what's next. Don't roll anything out. But at this point, we hadn't really gone over that subject yet.
Well, that's the story. I mean, people can relate to what you went through because we all went through it. But I think there's value also in sharing how you kind of clawed your way back out of it and continue to grow now. That's the kind of lessons we share here all the time. It's like how people manage to succeed even when things aren't, set up in their favor.
Yeah. And you're right. You're right. You're exactly right. I think the hardest thing, it felt like it was a 2-year slog, and we finally are getting to the other side of that. And then they try and pull you back in with something new like Omicron. And so it's like, gosh, can we get out
and
of
then Omicron
thing,
too? There's a sequel to Omicron.
Right, I know. And then there was, what was it, Deltacron that was found up on some island? I mean, there's just some new thing that's happening. So, you feel like you get some traction and you get ahead, and then, there's something that pulls you back. And so we're still not, feeling like we're completely conquering the world. But to Jarod's point that he said earlier, I think we are marching in the right direction finally. And we have gotten over the hump, and we have, added a lot to the team. And we've added 5 people in the last year. And so it's continuing to grow as we go along. So for sure, that's definitely something that we would consider.
How about a couple lessons learned? I mean, you did this in public. One of the lessons might be don't make a documentary film about your company having a rough time. But like, what's new in 2022 for you?
I think for me, from a leadership team standpoint, I realized how much I appreciated each of those members of that team, and how early on we could have folded pretty quick, and we didn't. And we grinded it out together. And I can't recall a moment where it got so testy where it was at a point where somebody wanted to walk out. It never got to that point. So that showed me just the value and the importance of the honesty that we had with one another, and that we were supporting one another through it. I think another, at least, takeaway for me was that I can't do it by myself. And I think over the first 8 or 9 years, you feel as part business owner that you have to have all the answers. And I had an aha moment where it's impossible for me to have all the answers. And we have perfectly capable team members that are fantastic and intelligent. And then it's up to me to facilitate them to think more and to run with more things. And it's okay for me to say, I don't know. I don't have that answer. I never felt confident in saying that before. I felt like I had to come up with something. When someone's coming to you as the business owner, Jarod, which way do we go? What do we do? And I used to feel a lot of pressure, and I was able to take that pressure away. So in terms of a learning, it was, hey, you don't have to have all the answers. It's impossible, number one. And you've got this tremendous team around you. Just push them to think and to plan and to grow. And so for me, that's been freeing going through that experience.
Tim?
Yeah, on my side, I think it's really twofold. One, I feel like we've gone through the worst of it, and we can pretty much tackle anything now. And so there's a renewed confidence, and we really got hit pretty hard. We always used to say, we started back in 2011, and so we were on the back end of the 2008, 2009, economy dip. And so we always were like, well, if we could make it in 2011, we can make it anytime. And then little did we know COVID was going to come and shut the doors on everything. But it is, again, a feeling of, holy mackerel, we got through that. Now we know we can get through anything together. So that piece of that confidence and sort of that piece in that is good. And then I think a renewed feeling of, friends and family. I think that, you get sometimes dive into your work. Like I talked about being an entrepreneur, and it's 24 hours, you're always on. I think the need for those times, I've got 2 little girls, really, it's given me a renewed sense of wanting to spend time with them, wanting to get out of the office sometimes and really get into that family time. We had those opportunities sometimes when things closed down during the pandemic. I don't want to lose that.
And that was another key learning on the family side, because I had a really rough time when we went remote for a couple months and getting frustrated. I had 2 young sons at that point, a little bit older now, 2 years later. And with my wife, trying to figure out what that rhythm was going to look like. We both like to work out. So it was like, how do we both work out? What do we do with the boys? And then it's full steam ahead from an ownership standpoint. Even if your production team is in a lull and there's not much work for them, your to-do list and things are always there for you that you need to try to make happen behind the scenes. And so I got frustrated with my boys for being around and just wanting to play with their dad. And so my wife at one point just knocked me down and said, you're in their house. This is their home. And that was a defining moment for me personally, where I realized I'm in their space right now. And I was looking at it as if they were in my space. And so that was a big deal on the family side that changed that perspective going forward. There hasn't been a day since then where I don't have that realization and take that with me.
Oh, that's so different for me. I'm like, you bitches are broke. This house is my house. Just having a chat over here.
I have one last question before we kick you out, which is that, for what you do as a media making business, this must have changed, or maybe it didn't, and that's the question, how you tell clients to work with media. We think it'd be great if you told it a lot more personably. We think it would be great if you, maybe you make it more bite-sized. Maybe that's the other thing you learned, is that people have no attention span thanks to the pandemic. It needs to be warmer in general. Whatever. What did you bring to your client side of this experience after doing this?
Yeah, I think one of the things we always talk about with clients is, and this is going to be ironic saying this, is to not put yourself in the story. So that's not really a good statement coming out of somebody that just did a documentary about yourselves. But it is really about telling the story of the person that you're trying to reach rather than telling the story about yourself. And so there's some irony in that we're talking about on the back end of doing a documentary about ourselves. But that's where we really start our conversation, I think, is, how much do you want to be a part of this? And if it's all about, me, and the flashy details, that's probably not going to be a good fit for the storytelling piece. And so that's where we really start that. And then we go from there. And I think, there is a appetite for longer form stuff. And that's, I think, also what we learned. So we live in a world where we do a lot of videos that are 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 1 minute. They're all, internet-based or event-based, any of those kind of things. And now we've done something that's 60 minutes long, and, people are sticking around and watching it. And when you look at view stats and see where people drop off and those kind of things, I think that people are willing to put in time as long as it's good quality and it's something that interests them. And even the younger generation, and we all sit here and think, the young generation is 15 seconds and they're out. Kids spend hours on YouTube because they find stuff that they like, and then they'll just watch ad infinitum.
I think my kids are way into YouTube. But what I would say is a documentary about yourself might seem like navel gazing, but not when you're sharing what you were sharing. Like maybe the one you were originally going to make would have felt like navel gazing.
Right.
Okay, 10 years, everything's awesome. But not when things are falling apart and you still let people in to take a look at how you get through it. I feel like that's a totally different thing.
That's fair.
It's one girl's opinion.
All right. We have come to this part of the show.
And here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
And look at that. Joanna's our person of the day. She said, but they will watch the Spider-Man movie. They'll sit through
They'll
that
hang in
long
there for
time.
that. Yeah.
It's true.
And this other Steve Brogan fella, he says, we truly need more success stories like yours right now. That's for sure. Like how people dug their way back out. For sure. So now we've come to the point of the show where we ask every guest the same question, which is the backpack question. This question is, what goes in your backpack? It could be something physical. It could be something metaphorical. It's what's going to help you succeed over the next handful of years. Carrie, what's an example of something physical people could add to a backpack?
Extra set of teeth.
An extra set of teeth. That's a good one.
Contributed by DJ Cumberbund.
DJ Cumberbund.
I used to have some Invisalign. I used to have some Invisalign in my backpack.
Did you see?
Not anymore, thankfully.
I used to carry an extra doorknob because one of my friends had an apartment that they rented, and the doorknob, you had to move it from the inside to the outside when you left because it was broken. And I started carrying an extra one because we'd get back and something would be wrong and we couldn't get in. I was like, see, and
Carrie, what's a great metaphorical thing someone could add to their backpack?
Kindness.
Oh, I think kindness is great.
Ariel Helvetica, the burlesque performer, came up with kindness.
She did.
Yeah.
And you laughed in her face.
I did, Bear, but not for that reason.
We can add to the backpack.
To the backpack. Well, so I know when we heard that we were coming on with you guys, Jarod was really excited because he had his backpack ready. But I think for my answers, you can think about friends and family. That's a big one for me. I've really realized how important that is. I think the other one is business experiences. I'm very much a person that likes, when I give gifts, I like to give experiences. When I think of what I've learned from through business in 10 years now, those are the things I rely on to continue to succeed or try and find success in things I do.
Jarod, Latch, what do you think?
Yeah, I think mine touches on both business and family. But as I thought about it, selflessness is one that I think is really important, whether you're leading your family or leading other people, because we all talk about empathy. And the only way to truly understand somebody, why they reacted a certain way, why they behave, is to look outside yourself. So for my number one, I think selflessness is so important. And then I thought of this one as having a short memory, especially on the business side, whether you win or lose, the successes and failures. I mean, if you lament too long on a failure, you're missing opportunity. But if you bask in the wins too long, then you might become overconfident and you might miss something there as well and potentially get complacent. So selflessness and having a short memory doesn't mean you don't come back to it later and scrub a little bit more and figure it out. But those would be my two.
The only thing I'd say, Jarod, is take your wife's counsel into account, because she was saying you're so selfless, you sometimes forget to take care of yourself. So watch your own documentary adjust accordingly.
Good
So
point.
she literally talks
Point
about
taken.
a backpack in the documentary.
Yes,
Yes.
she did. Well, I
Good
figured out
reason
that
as any
maybe
to
I was
have you on the
carrying
show.
too much stuff. I had to unload some of those things, and now I'm recalibrating the backpack.
It's a good way to look at it. It's different containers for holding different things. Some can hold memories. My grandmother was not famous for having a backpack, but she was famous for having a picnic basket, just like Yogi Bear. The only thing is she used to carry kind of illicit materials in it. Like, for instance, when we go to lobster cooking, there was sort of a illegal bring your own bottle on the play. So I'll tell you what she stored in it.